Hello, scholars. Congrats on making it through the Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. We're going to spend a little bit of time taking some notes and talking through what it looks like to write the final essay for the novel. So first, some essay requirements. Remember, we've been talking all trimester about the post-colonial lens. So your essay requirement is looking through a post-colonial lens. How does Junior show resistance, resignation, and also hybridity? This is going to be the biggest summative in the grade book so far. So I want you to really spend some time reflecting and thinking and then writing this. For your summative, you're required to write a 5-paragraph essay. That includes an introduction paragraph, 3 body paragraphs, 1 paragraph about resistance, 1 about resignation, and the last one about how Junior shows hybridity, and a conclusion paragraph. You also need 3 or more direct quotes from the book, and we're going to use that TLQ format we've been talking about, where you have words directly from the book in quotation marks, and afterwards you have the author's name. So Sherman Alexie is the author. You'd write Alexie and capitalize the A, and then a space, and then the page number. And finally, your summative needs to focus on Junior. That's the character that you will be writing about. And we've practiced already a little bit, so you guys are set up for success. Do you remember a couple weeks ago you wrote the practice paragraph, and you had to write about an Indian character besides Junior? So you could choose Rowdy, Mary Spirit, Eugene, or Junior's parents. And then you wrote a full paragraph, 12 or more sentences, talking about if that character showed resignation, resistance, or hybridity. After you worked through that packet, you had to transfer that onto Schoology into the character analysis writing. A lot of you did a really nice job with that. So if you felt okay doing that assignment, you are going to have no problem with this essay. Okay, so what I want you to do is to look. You need to have a couple things. I want you to get out a pencil and also your resistance, resignation, hybridity yellow packet from the novel where you took some notes. And then you should have a new handout where you have on the first page these terms. We're going to take some time to write in the definition just to review them and some examples. That way you're not scrambling last minute to think, I don't remember what resistance is. I don't know how I'm going to prove that Junior has it. So pause the video if you need some time to open up your backpack and get these things out, and then we'll get started. Okay, so our first term that I want to review, since it's been a few months, we talked about this before the winter break even happened, is colonialism. So this picture down on the left is a picture representing colonialism. That's when a group of people take control of another group of people and exploit them. And exploit just means to use for selfish gain. So for example, if instead of coming to my class every day and learning English, it would be exploitation if I ran a side hustle, a fashion business, and when you came to my class, I forced you to sew fashion t-shirts. And then I sold them for a profit, didn't give you any pay. Okay, that would be exploitation. It's completely illegal. So in real life, here's some examples of colonialism. We have slavery, people working without pay and in terrible conditions usually, sometimes taken from their homelands. And genocide is another way that we've seen colonialism play out. That usually includes killing an entire culture of people, usually for their land or for a different set of beliefs. So make sure that you get down these definitions. Pause the video if you're still writing, and then you can resume it when you're done. Okay, next, post-colonialism. That is looking at the long-term results of colonialism. So a question that we can ask is, how are the effects of colonialism still hurting and exploiting people today in 2020, for example? And this is the lens that that you already looked at Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian through. So here's an example and some things that we've talked about. We've talked about school. There's this achievement gap where Native American students aren't achieving at the same rate or success as white students. And so we talk about why is that? we know that Native American students are just as smart as white kids, right? It has nothing to do with intelligence. It has everything to do with opportunities. Okay, so that's an effect of post-colonialism. Also poverty. So we see families stuck in these cycles of poverty that they can't get out of. That's a result of post-colonialism, stuck in a situation, as well as opportunities for the future available. So there are 3 ways that Indigenous or Native people can respond to colonialism. And these hopefully look very familiar to you. The first is resignation, which means to give up. And some signs or coping mechanisms of resignation include drugs and alcohol abuse, violence, depression, and suicide. Basically, quitting or giving up. So you might hear if somebody quits a job, they put in their letter of resignation. It means they don't want to show up anymore. They're done. The second way that somebody could respond to colonialism is through resistance. And resistance means to fight back against colonialism. And that often includes reclaiming cultural identity. So a lot of the times that includes writing, protesting, art. We even see Junior drawing comics throughout the book. That counts as resistance. He's also reading books. And also revolution. So fighting for your own rights. There's some graffiti here that kind of combines the art and the revolution and the protesting all together. The final way that Indigenous people can respond to colonialism is through hybridity. That means to blend 2 cultures together. And this one, I think, is the trickiest to understand, but we see this in the book when Junior transfers from the school on his reservation to Reardon. He has to engage with a new culture. He even gets a new name. Okay, so other signs include reclaiming, but also engaging with the system, having multiple identities or names, maybe using different language depending on where you are, and being part of multiple communities. Take a moment, write down these notes on your note page, pause the video if you need to, and then we'll move on when you're ready. Next, I have 3 tips for you for writing this paper about Junior showing resistance, resignation, and hybridity. My first tip for you, number 1, make sure you know the book really well. That doesn't mean just the parts that we've read out loud or the parts that you've been quizzed on, but in order to write a really good paper, and we've spent an entire trimester on this, you need to know the book inside and out. So you need to know the beginning of the book, the details from the middle, and also the end. And by the time you're done writing your paper, you should be using evidence from all parts of the book to show that you really have a deep understanding. Okay, so don't just focus on the beginning, but you're going to pull examples from all parts of it so we can get a real full picture of how Junior shows resistance, resignation, and hybridity. The second tip for you for writing this paper, make sure that you're choosing examples from different parts of the novel. This kind of builds on the first one. So you need 3 direct quotes. That's the requirement for your paper, 1 in each body paragraph. If I see that all your examples are from chapter 2 of the book, I'm going to think to myself, wow, you only read chapter 2. I don't think you really understand this book. I don't think you really followed and read with us. Okay, so make sure that you're really intentionally not choosing examples all from the same chapter, that you're choosing evidence from different parts of the book. And as your teacher, I'm going to tell you, the end of the book is the most important part, because Junior is a character who's coming of age. He's changed from the beginning of the book to the end of the book, and he's grown as a person. So he's better than he was at the beginning of the book. And so for you to talk about his growth and give examples about what he was like at the beginning of the book compared to the end of the book, maybe how he's grown in his ability to resist, is a really mature analysis activity. Okay, so make sure that you are talking about the end of the book in Junior as he's growing as a character. And lastly, when you start brainstorming the evidence you want to use, the easiest way to do it is to brainstorm the really big and obvious examples. Okay, so when you think resistance, think if over the course of the whole book, how does Junior show resistance the most? And those are going to be the pillars for your body paragraphs. So for example, if I'm writing a paper on Junior's grandmother, I'm not going to write about how she shows resistance because she wears sneakers. That's a small, insignificant detail, and it's going to be hard to write an entire paragraph of a paper about her sneakers because it's only mentioned once and is kind of an obscure detail. Okay, so I could use the fact that she has resistance and she wears sneakers, but that would belong in the analysis portion as an additional example to support my bigger examples. Okay, so when you think about the body paragraphs, think big picture. How does Junior show the most resistance or the most hybridity? And so start big, do not start small, or else it's going to be really hard to write your paragraphs. Okay, so let's flip open to the resistance page. You are going to go through now and you're going to brainstorm really, really big examples. How does Junior overall show resistance, resignation, and hybridity? So we're going to start with resistance here. So number one, big picture, how does Junior show resistance in the book? You can even look at the notes that you just took on the chart on the front page of your current note packet. Does he use art? Does he go to a protest? Think through, and I want you to write down 1 or 2 words. How does he resist? Okay, once you have that, I want you to write why. What fuels Junior's ability to do this? Why does he choose this type of resistance over another type of resistance? Next, when in the novel does Junior show resistance the most? So I want you to think now of a specific example or an action that Junior does. What is it? How does it show resistance? And then explain why. Either why does it show resistance or why did Junior do it? If you need to take a moment to pause the video to figure out the how and the when, you can do that. You can even look at your note page and packet to help you out. And finally, here's some pictures for you of some characters in the novel. These are taken from shmoop.com. But what characters help Junior resist the most? Who's supporting him in this? So write down 1 or 2 of the characters. They can be one of the pictures that you see on the screen, or it can be another character that you think of. I'm just going to tell you right now that Ted, the guy who spoke at his grandmother's wake, does not show or help with resistance, right? He has, he just doesn't fit. So cross him off. Think about these other characters. You can even think who helps, not only who helps Junior resist, but who does Junior help show resistance, okay, and why? Again, we're thinking really, really big picture here. Pause the video if you need to, and just pause, fill this in, and then we will move on. All right, here's the bottom part. This is where you're going to go back to your resistance, resignation, and hybridity packet. It says now consider the chart above, so you just fill this part in, and the examples you recorded in advance. Give yourself a pat on the back for being so prepared to write this part in the essay packet. Okay, what is the best example that you've written down or that you can think of that you could use as a direct quote to show the resistance paragraph in your essay? So go ahead and write it down. So what's something Junior does or says? What chapter does it happen in? And then what is a direct quote? So a sentence or 2, word for word from the book, with the author's name and the page number afterwards. That would be really, really good for this essay. And then finally, we're going back to analysis, the why. Why does this show resistance? What would happen if Junior didn't resist in this way? What helps him resist in this way? How does it change him so that he can continue to resist in the future? Take some time, pause the video, and make sure you get something in this box. We're going to go through and do the exact same thing with the resignation box. So I'll go through it and then you can pause the video. Next, how does Junior show resignation?